Sometimes Pokemon have sucky evolutions. You'll have something on your team and it'll be great, but then when it evolves, it just doesn't turn into something that's as good as it could have been, and it leaves you with a disappointed feeling that can kind of put a damper on your adventure. Well, I am here to try and rectify that, because in this video, I'm going to be giving amazing new evolutions to Pokemon with bad evolutions. Now, it should be noted that a lot of this is opinion-based, and although I did try to go with Pokemon that are pretty universally disliked, a lot of my own opinions will also be reflected here too. So this isn't really trying to be objective or anything if I happen to replace your favorite Pokemon with something else, so just keep that in mind, and with that said, let's go ahead and get started with Tarountula. This one is more of a personal choice because from what I've seen, Tarountula isn't exactly a super popular Pokemon or anything, but personally, I absolutely love it. I think it just oozes cuteness and charm, and for me, it is an S-tier design that is right now my favorite out of all of the Route 1 bug types. However, when it evolves into Spidops, in my opinion, it completely loses everything it had going for it and just becomes straight up ugly. This one was a big disappointment for me when I first played through Scarlet and Violet, so I wanted to go ahead and give Tarountula a new evolution that actually lives up to all of its great qualities. In fact, I actually had the idea of giving it 2 evolutions and making it into a 3-stage line. So first off, I would like you to meet Meloweave. This middle stage is your classic cocoon stage middle evolution, and that is kinda why I had the idea to go for a 3-stage line, because Tarountula's big ball of yarn seemed like it would be the perfect cocoon for a middle evolution, where its ball of yarn becomes so big that it just envelops the entire Pokemon's body, except for like its eyes and mouth as we see here. As a result, this Pokemon would move around either by bouncing or rolling around, which would be insanely cute and would help to retain the charm of Tarountula like I was talking about. And it also keeps the cuteness of Tarountula too, which naturally was an important factor. The name Meloweave comes from the words mellow and weave, due to its mellow disposition and because of Tarountula likely being based on an orb weaver spider. Weave can also connect to the yarn motif as well, so overall this just felt like a good name. Meloweave is also a pure bug type still, but that actually changes upon it evolving into its final evolution. This is Arachnid, and it is the way that I personally would have liked to have seen Tarountula go with its evolution. It's a bug fairy type, and essentially it just turns into a knitting grandma, which would have been such a great concept for a Tarountula evolution, and is way better than what we got with Spidops in my opinion. Like, it even has legs that double as knitting needles, for crying out loud. What more can you ask for? The added fairy type also helps to contrast a little bit better in my opinion with its counterpart, Nimble and Lokix, who are bug dark types, so I feel like this approach works better from that perspective as well. Just for fun, I even decided to look up where knitting originated to see if this whole concept would actually be a good fit for the Paldea region as well, and although I admittedly just looked at Wikipedia for about 2 seconds, it does mention multiple key contributors in the origins of knitting, such as artifacts and early knitting history, that come from Spain. So there is even a great connection to the Paldea region with this motif as well. Even the name works amazingly well in my opinion, and I don't even really need to explain it because it's pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, Arachnid is just great in my opinion, and overall I would have absolutely loved something like this for Tarountula's evolution instead of what we actually got with Spidops. Okay, now it's time for a special announcement. I am introducing an awesome new promo for my Patreon. Starting today, you can get Histrobi Chronicles TCG booster packs as another perk for becoming a member. This is a TCG that features the Fakemon from my videos and my Histrobi Chronicles project, and now you can get packs just for signing up to my Patreon. This is also on top of all of the other benefits that my Patreon provides, such as early access to videos, exclusive looks and sneak peeks at my Histrobi Chronicles project, ad-free videos, one-on-one chats with me, and more. So it's a great time to join. It's as little as $1 a month, and it supports the channel and literally makes these videos possible. So it's also immensely appreciated. Hit the link in the description to join today, or simply go to patreon.com/hoopsandhiphop and help support the channel, get some amazing perks, and now even get some awesome merch on top of all of that. Again, hit the link in the description to join today, it helps out a ton, and now, back to the video. Okay, so next up on the list is Crabominable. Crabominable is easily one of the least popular Pokemon out there, especially from the more recent generations, and I definitely share that same sentiment. So I knew that I had to try and give Crabrawler a new evolution that people could actually get excited about. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Brawlobster. This one actually came about pretty naturally, to be honest, because when I decided that I wanted to do a new Crabrawler evolution, the name Brawlobster came to mind almost immediately, and I decided to go with it because it just seemed like a perfect fit. First, a crab evolving into a lobster does make a lot of sense. It retains the brawl motif in the name by going this way, and it just sounds nice as a name in general, so I decided to go with that pretty much right away, and that is what came first for this Pokemon. Next came the overall concept and design, and since it obviously was going to retain its fighting type, I wanted to give it a new secondary type to spice it up a bit and also further differentiate it from Crabominable. And ultimately, I decided to give it the Dark type. Now, this part of the design admittedly isn't super deep on its origins or anything like that, but when thinking about the Dark type as a possibility here, I imagined the concept of a dirty fighter, as in like a street thug or someone who cheats or uses underhanded tactics in their fighting, and I thought that sounded like a neat approach, so I decided to go with it, and I feel like it turned out great. With Crabominable being so goofy and ugly looking, this design brings in a level of cool and sleek that, in my opinion, is exactly what this line of Pokemon is needing. And again, while this is all just a matter of opinion, I would definitely prefer something like this to what we actually got. As we get into this next Pokemon, I want to, as always, give a big shout out to my guy Rgreywind for drawing the artwork of all of these designs. He does great work, and you can check him out with the links in the description, so be sure to do so. Moving along though, the Pokemon we are going to highlight next is Bellibolt, and this one is kind of a double whammy sort of scenario. Number one, I personally don't really like Bellibolt that much. It doesn't exactly seem to be a hated Pokemon like some of these others by any means, but personally, I don't really like it that much. But more importantly, I also absolutely love its pre-evolution Tadbulb. Like Tarountula, I think this is another S-tier Pokemon. I love how it blends its tadpole body with the shape of a light bulb. I think it's absolutely ingenious and just pulled off so well. So to go from that to something like Bellibolt is a bit of a bummer to me personally, so I wanted to make another evolution for Tadbulb that more directly captured its own charm. And Luminurin is what I came up with. First, I went with a more traditional frog body style for this design, and I also ditched the false eye thing that Bellibolt has going on, because personally, I don't really like that. But the reason why I went with this overall more traditional frog body style as well is because Luminurin is also based on a spotlight. Since I wanted to continue with Tadbulb's own charm, like I said, with it being based on a light bulb and all, I thought that an evolution that is based around a spotlight would be a natural progression, and that is why I went with this more traditional frog look, because I imagined that this Pokemon could have a spotlight on its back, similar to how Bellabolt has a speaker on its stomach, and I thought the shape of a frog's body could mimic a spotlight quite well. So all of the bulbs that you see on Luminuran's body are actually bulbs of light that it can emit light from. It also retains the pure electric typing from Tadbulb, and for its name, I personally love how it turned out. It comes from Luma, as in illuminate, and Anurin, which is a really cool, unique sounding word that actually denotes frogs and toads. So it's a perfect fit and it sounds cool too, so overall I just really like the name and I like this approach to a Tadbulb evolution. But next, we're going to go ahead and jump back a few generations and look at Unfezant. This is another Pokemon that is pretty universally disliked, and I feel like most people agree that it is the weakest of all of the fully evolved forms of the regional birds. So I wanted to set out to give Pidove an evolution that it could actually be proud of, and personally, I feel like if it evolved into Fakemon instead, that a lot more people would probably be interested in using it. The biggest complaint that I hear about Unfezant whenever the topic comes up is that it's pretty plain and boring, so that critique is what I attacked first and foremost when coming up with the idea for this evolution, and I knew that I wanted it to have both a concept and an appearance that was interesting and striking. So I looked at this line as a whole to see what I could do with them, and the big thing with this line is that they all have a heart theme, because hearts are present in each and every one of their designs. When it comes to hearts and love, it's pretty low-hanging fruit as far as Pokemon goes, because a really natural and intriguing direction that you can go with that is in the direction of a broken heart. So I thought about doing a new evolution for this line that is themed around a broken heart that is also a dark flying type in order to reflect this. And that to me just felt like the exact kind of pizzazz that I was looking for, so I decided to go for it. Right off the bat, I also knew that I wanted this Pokemon to have a dark color scheme as well, not only because that would match this Pokemon's origins, but also because that would help to create that striking appearance that I mentioned wanting earlier. It also is pretty symbolic of the broken heart theme as well, because since white doves, for instance, are pretty symbolic of love, and the dove is what Pidove is based on, a black dove would help to drive home that theme of brokenheartedness even more. And it also just so happens that there actually is a black dove that exists in real life, known as the black cuckoo dove, so Fakemon is also based around this bird as well. Additionally, the other major thing in this design are actual broken heart symbols, because since, as I said, the Pidove line have hearts in each one of their designs, it was only natural that Fakemon would have broken hearts in its design, of which there are multiple. It also helped to contribute to that striking look I've been talking about, which is great, and then the name just feeds right into this as well, because Fakemon comes from fowl as in bird, but also foul as in bad. And then amor is the Latin and Spanish word for love, so the name basically means a bird of bad love, which is basically exactly what it is. So all in all, I am really happy with how this one turned out, and I think Pidove would probably have a much better reputation if it evolved into something like this instead. For this next Pokemon, we have a starter, and it is none other than Incineroar. I know Incineroar is really good in VGC, but design-wise, I have always really disliked this thing. and I know there are others out there that feel the same way, so I wanted to show how good a final Litten evolution really could have been if it didn't go the Looney Tunes route and just become an overly exaggerated buff Litten. Tigrascorch is, frankly, a huge missed opportunity because, in my personal opinion, this would have been so much better than Incineroar. This design had two primary points of emphasis that I wanted to address with it. Number one, I wanted it to be quadrupedal, because the bipedal buff Litten look is the main problem that I have with Incineroar. And then two, I also wanted it to more directly revolve around the tiger jumping through a ring of fire trope that Incineroar is also based around. That is basically the reason why it's a fire type, because the Alola starters all kind of have this circus theme going on, and while that is cool, that's kind of where this concept stops with Incineroar. It's basically just like a type justification. So with Tigrascorch, I wanted to actually integrate this into its actual design a little more directly. And as you can see, it has a flaming tail that it can manipulate to protect itself, and the idea is that it's able to use these flames on its tail to essentially surround its body in a ring of fire, and in battle, with its opponent unable to attack due to these flames, it can then jump through this ring of fire and strike, replicating the circus trope. This Pokemon does retain some of Incineroar's design traits though, because it is also a Fire-Dark type. However, since Incineroar's Dark type comes from its Wrestler heel motif, it kinda felt like Tigrascorch needed something else to go along with its design to justify the Dark type being there once again. And if there's one thing that the Fire-Dark type combination screams, it's HE double hockey sticks. So Tigrascorch, as a result, was given a very light devil vibe, with its fur resembling the appearance of devil horns and the pattern on its forehead resembling a devil's tail. So I guess you could say that with this Pokemon being a sort of counterpart of Incineroar, that it went from heel to hell.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Bad dad jokes aside though, when getting into the name of this Pokemon, it's actually pretty straightforward, because it simply just comes from the Latin word for tiger, along with scorch, which obviously connects to the fire type. And overall, this is just my opinion on the matter, but I personally think this would have been about 50 times better than Incineroar, and along with Decidueye, I think that it would have helped to have made the Alola starters one of the greatest starter trios of all time if it had looked a little bit more like this. What do you guys think though? Do you like these new evolutions, or do you prefer the originals? Be sure to let me know in the comments, leave a like if you enjoyed, and as always, subscribe for more. I'll be back with another new video soon, and until then, as always, thanks so much for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.